So the series that we prepared about storytelling consists of 3 different virtual events. The first one, today we're going to go over storytelling strategies for improved reporting, and we want to share what resources might be useful to bring out the stories in the movement, and how we can better showcase the efforts that everybody puts to put free knowledge forward. The second virtual event will go over infographics and the visual display of information, and how you can connect reports, a past report with a future report, and how those are related, how you can use color coding and find the right media. And the third event is called Frame Your Measures to tell the story you want, and how to talk about advocacy in the report. That's a topic that has been brought up in different meetups, and we want to actually discuss with all the community how we can do this better and how we can use the report as a learning tool. So with no further ado, let's start. Why do we evaluate and report?
Okay, so when we were thinking about this hangout, one of the things that we talked about a lot is what is the motivation for evaluating and report? And the thing that we kept coming back to is the fact that our movement is all about documenting and sharing our knowledge. It's about everyone sharing what they know best and what they're doing, and coming with that is also learning from what other people are doing. So for us at the organization level, that is at the level of the program and project leaders at the organizations that some of you work with, this means exchanging knowledge, and exchanging knowledge on the level of process, programs, and projects, what works and what doesn't work, and how, in order to achieve the movement's goals. So on the next slide, you'll see a cool little infographic that gets to some of the key reasons that we do evaluate and report. At the bottom, you'll see there the evaluating and reporting for accountability to the movement. We think it's really important that these dollars that have come into our movement via small donations from around the globe and large donations from around the globe too, it's really critical that we do report back to the donors who have given us their trust to make our movement better and stronger and include more knowledge from everyone, which is our ultimate goal. So we do want to report back to them in a transparent way around how these dollars are being spent. We also feel there's an opportunity to share with our partners all over the world more about the work that we're doing. The movement has partners in the form of educational institutions, cultural organizations, and many, 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 many more folks who we think could benefit from the knowledge and the experience that we're having. And really importantly, in the world that we're living in today, we know that this effort has been rolling out called the Global Metrics Effort. And metrics effort is really helping us try to be able to count the work that we're doing and be able to look at that within our own context. So while we are attempting to getting better at measuring and tracking our work, we also want to make sure that we are highly emphasizing and valuing the stories. At the end of the day, why are we doing what we're doing? Is it really so that we can achieve a certain number of bytes added? Is it so we can look at the number of partnerships we've attained? It may be, but there are also occasionally very good stories, things that really motivate us to do the work that we do. This really is one of the most fun parts of our jobs, I think, because there are no stories without numbers and no numbers without stories. So we want to make sure that we emphasize those stories and we're able to tell them.
So as we were saying before, the knowledge sharing on a organizational level happens through exchanging knowledge around processes and programs. That is why we track and measure activities, and we put this into reports to ensure that the learning is passed on. And Casey, I think you have some comments on to how this learning could happen.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely important. At each and every level, things are happening in your program. Some things go really well, some things go not as well as you had hoped. And I know at the end of every project, you walk away and say, well, I would have done that differently if I did it again. And sometimes you will do it again, and sometimes you won't. And so this is where the big value of us being a movement and a community comes in. To be able to take those lessons and say, hey, that wasn't quite right. Let's change this. And if you don't use it for yourself, share that with other people who may be going through a similar project in the next in the next grant cycle or in the next school year. So it's really important, that knowledge, those lessons become knowledge when you apply them and integrate them into your new practices and share them with other people. And this is why it's not only important that we learn how to tell stories to each other so that they jump off the page and you think, oh my gosh, I got to share this with somebody over in another chapter. They're going to love this idea. And beyond that, sorry, I've gotten a little lost. Beyond learning how to tell the stories that really jump off the page that we can share with each other and help our movement grow globally, we need to know where to look to find them. So like I said at the beginning, tell us where you look for information. And as we get better at reporting, check on each other's reports. This is really key to find information. What has struck me again and again when I read through a batch of reports is that, somebody in Estonia has figured out how to fix something that somebody in Sweden might be struggling with. Now, those are just examples I've pulled out of the air, but I see this again and again. There are people who are fixing problems that other people are struggling with, and I think, how can we get this information across? I want them to talk. I know that your contexts are wildly different, but a lot of these solutions seem to be applicable across many countries and cultures. So thinking about the way we do our work and the way we make mistakes and have successes and the way those can be shared is a super important part of our growth as a movement. And I hope that you all will think of that as you're writing your reports. It's not just for a program officer to read. This is for your colleagues and your friends.
Well, that brings us to the question about how we actually tell stories. It's something that we know is actually very challenging. My son in the background just brought up what is his favorite story right now, Harold and the Purple Crayon, and that really made me start thinking about the stories, why it is that stories are so compelling to us. Stories, I think, when we are able to present them in reports, give us a hugely different angle. They help us to understand something from a very human-to-human level as opposed to understanding it simply in the context of numbers. And it's something that we really don't take for granted. Not everyone can be a famous children's book author. It's quite a difficult skill. So one of the questions that we want to ask to you, whoever is out there listening to us, we want to know how we can help support you in writing the stories, in finding and writing the stories about the work that you're doing. There are a lot of resources out there that we can help provide you with, but we do want to know how we can actually help you to tell the stories of our world, because we think that they're so compelling and so important.
And so to that end, we thought in this first virtual event, we wanted to put the basic elements of our report and a story together, and many parts of our report can actually be the parts of a story. So for instance, the background goals can be the context description in a story, and activities, the process and targets take the place of raising action that eventually leads to outcomes, which in a story would be the climax, the most important part that then leads to the conclusion of the outcomes. Those conclusions are usually what help you think what the next steps would be. So if you think about this on a graphic that shows you what is the level of drama, not wiki drama, but what is the level of activity that is taking place over time, activities rise to get to the point of the outcomes, and that is what you want to focus on. And when telling that story, you want to have in mind what you're going to communicate and how your actions led you there, and portray them in a way that puts it in a spotlight, let's say. And we thought that this graphic that is usually used for scripts in movies to identify the different turning points in a story could help see how a report relates to storytelling in one way. And to bring out the stories, we also came up with different sources that community leaders can use. So all these sources are to the data you give. This is the story behind the numbers that you provide. That's why there is data, and we when you report, there's always a request for data, but if you can bring that data alive with the stories that you find through blog posts, surveys, interviews, and you show through pictures and videos and audio, that makes a report so much depth and meaning.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these and how you can use them in your reports. Let's see if we can go to the next slide. Great. So blog posts so writing about your program on a local Wikimedia blog is a great way to keep your community up to speed about what your program is doing along the way. They're kind of like mini reports, and I think it's something a lot of you already do on a regular basis. So when it's time to write a report for WMF or to submit for the global community, you can go through those blog posts and pull key details and information from them, and then include links to those posts for anyone who wants to know more about your program has evolved. And I've used that, for example, with the Ukraine. I saw they were doing some very cool contests, or that they were getting a lot of people joining on writing contests. And the report told me the numbers, and I could tell that this was a good thing. But I went through their blog posts on the Ukrainian Wikimedia blog, and I found out so much more about how they were choosing topics, and that really made it seem like such a compelling and interesting thing. So the information was there, and I could find it. And their report that they submitted to WMF, was robust enough that I knew to go look for more information there. Another great way to build your reports is through interviews. You can conduct those either as part of surveys or talk to people at the end of events. If you have a camera on hand, maybe record it. Those videos are really helpful to go back and see what people liked. One great example of what we can get from interviews came from Shani, who works with Wikimedia Israel. She incorporated student quotes into a blog post that she wrote about teaching medical students to edit Wikipedia. Since reading the program from a student's point of view, I have not only gotten a better understanding of why the program was so important, I've learned really what the students thought about it. I think it's remarkable. Okay, I guess here's my example. So I first learned about the program in March when I was reading their annual plan grant impact report, and I could tell that 60 people had taken this course over 13 weeks, and they wrote 120 articles about medical topics in Hebrew. And I knew, hey, that's really cool and that's important, and this got added to our overall numbers. But it wasn't until last month that I read her blog post about it. And in that blog post, I found, like I said, the really great quotes from students. And since then, I've found myself retelling that story with my favorite quote to just about anyone who will listen, including about 3 doctors in the last month, 2 of whom didn't even know that they could edit Wikipedia. So this is how these stories become super powerful, even outside of our movement. It gets other people involved and excited. If you want to tell them about it, they definitely want to listen. And these are the tools that we can use to make them stand out. If we go into the next slide.
Oh,
okay.
So one second. We have a question here from Stuart Pryor.
Sure.
Yeah, he says, in terms of length for creating something people will read, are there any formats length that are recommended? I think we are addressing this later in the presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have a case study on that, and Karel, I think, also has some views on that. But thank you. Just keep submitting questions through the question and answer app, or through the event page as well. Let's go back to the presentation.
All right. So The other sources that you can use are surveys. Now, they're a great way to find out what your audience thinks about your program and can help you collect really key information that you'll need both for reports and for planning your program in the future. The evaluation portal has a lot of different tools for surveys, both telling you what kind of programs to use and suggesting questions that will be really helpful in getting people to talk. Through this you can find out what people liked, whether they're likely to come to another event, and what kind of changes you might make to make a future project even better. This is also, like I said, a great opportunity to collect quotes from your audience to share in reports. And the final source that you have to really build your story is pictures, video, and audio. They're a great way to illuminate the importance of your work in a really shareable and entertaining way. I mean, there's so many times that I've found myself reading a description of a program and thought, what on earth does that mean? And thankfully, a lot of times people include a video or a recording, and I can find out that actually, what Wikimedia Amicale is doing by having authors read introductions to their work, I mean, that's powerful and interesting, and it's something that helps me explain to someone else, well, here's what they're doing, and this is why it matters. And there's just so much about so many of your programs that are hard to capture in a few sentences. We are trying to keep things short, so videos and photos and recordings can help others understand who was involved and what you were doing. Like I said, I'm sure that so many of you have some kind of media that can make others think, hey, this sounds like a lot of fun. I think we can try that where we live. So on to our first case study, and Karel from Estonia is going to share with us his report and what they do in the process of reporting. And I just want to give a little bit of an intro to it. This is one of my favorite reports that I've read this year, and there are a lot of reasons that I like it. One of them is that they have done, I'm not sure how many programs, I want to say something like 20 plus programs throughout their year, and they broke it down into short descriptions of each program using a format that was consistent for each section of their report. So it got really easy to go through and know what they were talking about and what each kind of statement meant. And they kept things really pretty short, 2 to 3 sentences max in each of the longer descriptive sections. So that made it, those statements became really powerful. I knew what was going on, why it was important, and I knew where to look for other information. They included backup links in every single section. Anyway, I know that Karel can tell us so much better than I can about how they do this work and what they think is important about it. So I'm going to pass this over to him.
Hello, I'm Karel from Wikimedia Estonia, and I've already shared the handout for you. It's on the chat section of the Hangout. I don't know if it went through. Yes, it's also on the page on Google+, so you can access the handout from there. And my presentation consists of 3 parts. First, I'm going to tell about what we are doing now. We are trying to improve our reporting. So with the 2013 grant, we had many problems. And the reporting finally was rather hard for us. Unfortunately, we were late with the report, and we would like to prevent it next time. And therefore, we are implementing several practices to improve our reporting habits, especially now that we are trying to get to annual plan grant funding. And for reporting, I think the most important part is creation of the application or proposal for grant or for any funding from ministries, local ministries, or wherever you get your funds. So you have to have a good, well-structured application, because when you are going to write a report, it in a large part stands on the application. So this has to be done well. You have to have a good structure there. You have to foresee the outputs and outcomes, and you have to know who will be on the team of a project itself, because it is much better when the team does the reporting than just one person after everything is done goes through all the materials and does it himself or herself. Second thing what we are trying to do is to implement risk assessment to every project we have, because you have to foresee what may go wrong, and you have to be prepared if it goes wrong. And if you have done it already, it is much easier to talk about and write about failures later. You have foreseen some things, you have had plan B, and you can tell the story of how you had a problem and how you solved it, rather than just talk about how you failed. So this is a good thing to do, to have risk assessment, to have logic models to know what you really need in any time during the project, to really have a success with the project, and also to know what you are going to talk about in the report later. What are the outputs? What are the outcomes? Everything comes from this logic model. And what we think is really important, and it is also stressed by, I think, Wikimedia Foundation in some places, that you should do the reporting or tracking the project during the process. You have to know where are you spending your money. You have to know if you are achieving your benchmarks. For example, if you are in project and event grants funding, usually you don't have to send in quarterly reports. But still, if you are in the program, it's better to have even in the chapter an overview of where you are with the project. Are you achieving your benchmarks? Are you not achieving them? What should you do differently? So I have shared in my handout templates that we are using for expenditures and activities to see that every activity gets done, who is responsible for doing that activity. So you can have this checklist, and later on, if you have a question, you do a report, and you have a question about some point in the activities, then you know who to turn to, you know who is responsible for this activity. So I think this is important. And there are also reporting templates available by Wikimedia Foundation, and also what we are using is our interim reports. For example, we now have interim reports on professionalization. It's an important process, and we think we need to talk about this, how we do things, why we started with project writer, but why do we have now an executive director? So you go to this interim report and you can see there, and it also makes it much easier for us to talk about this process after the project is finished in the end of the year. It also makes it easier to talk about this in the report, final report. And also important is good documentation and accounting practices, that you have every document categorized, following a budget. Wikimedia Foundation is really helping us. We can present the documentation in our own language. But this also means that we have a responsibility to categorize all the documents that the lump of data we are presenting is really understandable, and they can understand from not knowing the language what the document is about. And also one important thing is communication, that you have to follow what you are doing, and then you know that something is going to change. You have to talk to the donor. Also, if you discuss these things with donor, you will have more recorded data, and it is much easier to report on changes afterwards. So if you have done all this, then final reporting is just putting together all these bits and bytes that you have in different documents, and you just put them together and you have a good report. So this is what we are trying to do at the moment. But at the moment, I think we are strong in theory, but we need to be stronger in practice. So this is what we are doing to improve our reporting practices. I am talking about the case of reporting. That's why I was asked to present. And this case of reporting is Wikimedia Estonia 2013 grant. And I don't know if some of you were in Berlin, but we had this presentation about do not try this at home. And this was strongly related to our 2013 grant. So basically everything that possibly can go wrong with the grant application process and also implementation of a grant. It happened with our 2013 grant. So it was really a mess. So we had many problems. There was actually just one team member, one board member writing the grant application, and finally during the grant process he decided to leave a chapter because of health problems and our problems. So this grant really stood on one person who left. We had rather ambitious project targets, and which were basically copy-pasted from our first grant, 2012 grant, and actually there were no corrections done, although we had numbers from 2012 grant, and we knew that some things were not working as well as they should be. At the beginning we thought they should work. So this learning was not taken into account during the writing of 2013 grant. Thirdly, we were all overwhelmed with other things to do. We were actually trying to run all the projects, and actually there was no good habit of tracking what we are doing. So this is really a problem. This is really something I want to tell you about. I've gone through this reporting process of the 2013 grant, and it really took a lot of time to collect all the numbers together, to collect all the information together. So this tracking is, I think, essential part. That if you have an event, you have a certain number of participants, you have whatever you get from an event, just write it down somewhere in a blog post, wherever, and you have information. It's much harder to go collect the information, I don't know, 4 to 6 months after when the project is finished. So this is I think is very, very important. And also all these problems come from the lack of human resources. That Wikimedia Estonia has 4 board members, we have 2 employees. It's not too little, but we do have this problem of having too many programs. We still have this problem. We try to concentrate on certain ones to really have the synergy between projects. So we should not spend too much time on having different separate projects. This is still a problem, but this really makes it harder to track everything what we are doing, and then finally to report on our activity. So this is a problem we still have, and we are working on having more active volunteers. The community work is very important for us, but this is something that makes reporting harder. But finally, to get to this reporting after all these problems, it is still possible to write a good report even if you don't have good reporting practices. This is what I'm as presenter want to tell you. So even if something has gone wrong during the project process, you don't have sufficient data, then Wikipedia or Wikimedia projects, they record so much data you have access to, and this is a really great thing. And also, what was good in our grant proposal is it was rather well structured from the beginning. So what I did is I took the structure of initial grant proposal. I restructured it somewhat. I didn't follow the order that was in the proposal, but I restructured it following the initial budget. So I think I made it a bit clearer, this report, and but also the link to the initial proposal was maintained. So this is also important, that the report should be linked to initial grant proposal or application. And then what I added is I listed all the activities that we had done, and I think what was very important was to have this short analysis. This is what we did, and also to see the sustainability of a project, the future of a project. Should we continue with this? Should we not continue with this? And I think this was important part for us. And finally, the categorizing of all expenditure documents following the budget. So this is, I think, is also important because you have to give WMF a financial overview of a project. And this is a very good way to do this, especially if you present all the documents in your original language, if it's not English. So they don't know which document links to which budget item. You should tell them which document links to which budget item. So this is the responsibility of the one who is reporting. So this is basically what we did with the report, and I think that although the process of the project was kind of mess, we finally managed to produce a report that really tells a story to WMF, other groups interested in this report, but most importantly, it also tells the story of our 2013 grant to ourselves. So this is the final point I'm going to talk about, is that after writing this 2013 grant report, we had all the necessary information to write our annual plan grant proposal. We had a good overview of what we had achieved. We had a good overview of what the actual budget was, not what we were going to think, but it is going to be in the beginning of a project, but what it actually was after the end of the project. And we had also a good overview of parts where we failed with our project, because as I told you, the targets were rather ambitious, and there was no risk analysis done when we had this grant proposal made. So this is also one thing I think is important, that you should do risk analysis even if it's not demanded by the donor. So this is I think an important part of project writing. And after this, it was rather easy to design targets and budget for our APG proposal. And also, one thing, I think it was really good to have this analysis done in May, June, as the proposal was due in October, because we had 3 months to reflect on the achievements of the 2013 grant. We also had a basis for writing letter of intent of how much money we may need to use the next year. So we had all this information already in May and June, and we could prepare better for next grant cycle. So this is also one thing I want to tell you, is that reporting is not done to the program officer or people in WMF. You do the reports for yourself in order to really control the development of organization. You need to know where you are going and how fast you are going. So reports tell that story for yourselves too. So this is, in short, it's all.
Thank you so much for sharing, Carl. I think there's so much really helpful and useful information there. And I have to say, for however painful that report was, it was super useful for me to share your story with other program officers and highlight really important projects that you were doing. So Maria, you said you had something to say about midterm reports.
Yes, I was listening to Karel, and I thought it was really interesting what he said about midterm reports. Even though you don't have to submit a report, reporting in the midterm of a program is important to follow up on how if you're achieving your goals or not. You can see that in the first outputs that you have. So I thought that was really interesting and important. There's a learning pattern on the Learning Pattern Library in the evaluation portal that talks about how midterms reports go a long way, because then you go back and you see how you adjusted what you were doing to actually achieve the goals that you set for yourself.
And I wanted to come back to the question that someone put out there earlier about what the ideal length of reports is. I wouldn't say that there is a length that any one report should be. Your projects are all very different, and the way you write is different. That said, I think that shorter reports if you can capture all of the key information, are really the most useful. It makes it easier for other people to read and more likely for other people to go through. One thing that, like I said, I was really struck with the Estonia report is the key information in the short description section and in the analysis section. They were usually about 2 or 3 sentences long, and in that, I think maybe by limiting themselves to that amount of text, they really got to what was important faster. So I could see what was important, what I needed to know, and then for longer descriptions about maybe things that went wrong or mistakes that happened, I knew I could find in other links in the backup. So I would say go for shorter, lots of small, short reports to make up your total report. As someone who reviews them is ideal. And hopefully all of you are reviewing them because they have so much great information.
And I'd love to chime in too, Maria, here, if that's okay, just to quickly say from the kind of program officer point of view, I echo the fact that we are also looking for kind of dense data, but short stories as well. And so it's definitely preferable to have a shorter report that captures the necessary details. I mean, you'll have a sense, hopefully, from the reporting form and from conversations with the program officer from which your program is getting funding about what key factors are critical to include. But I know I've heard from a number of our grantees that they tend to read the reports that are not their own, that are very, very short. So I think in the sense of doing a favor to the movement or trying to get others in the movement to read the reports, there are a number of things that we would recommend trying that have been discussed here, but also in keeping the report short. So that's a great question, Stuart.
I also wanted to, there's another question from Liangji. He's asking, how can Wikimedia Foundation help local chapter categorize all the documentation? Anyone wants to pick?
I don't know that.
I don't know either. I'm not sure I understand the question. I guess the question is, given that some of our grantees or some of our movement organizations are doing so much work, how can we help categorize and track that information? Or is it actually, could you give a more specific example perhaps so we could walk it through together?
Yes. So while we wait for that, we can actually discuss how we can help on this together now or later in the question part of the presentation. That's the whole point of the virtual meetup. We can move to the other case study.
Yeah,
yes.
I can talk about blog posts and what are so great about them. Can we pull the presentation back up?
Yes.
Great, thanks. So, like I said, one thing that strikes me every time I read these reports is that so many of you are learning really important lessons that other program leaders can use. And as we learn more about where we can share those, so that more of you are reading them and more of you are benefiting from the experience of others, I'd like to highlight the Wikimedia blog. So the Wikimedia Foundation blog is a place where I found all kinds of really useful and important information. So when you're writing a blog post, especially for the global community, it's really important that you think about lessons you learned in the process of coordinating your programs that you wish you'd known when you had started. One thing to keep in mind, though, is many challenges you face relate to the countries and cultures you're operating in. So for the global blog, it's probably better to focus on overall lessons that might be useful to people across many different contexts. I think that this blog post is a really great example. Someone told me I said Wojciech, and I'm really sorry if I mispronounced your name. He wrote this great post about starting an education program in the Czech Republic. And he goes through and he gives 7 tips for chapters who might be starting their own programs. What I encourage you all to read this at some point. It has really great lessons in it. But I'll say even a year and a half after it was written, I'm using this blog post to pull lessons out to create toolkits for education program leaders. So his learning really stands the test of time and can be shared easily and is relatable across so many things. So it doesn't focus on individual things that went wrong or individual exciting developments, but focuses on more thematic areas where we can share information with each other. And I think Maria is going to tell us about something that she used to do when she was working with Wikimedia Argentina.
Yes, I'm just going over a small mistake that I made.
Sorry, that was something I should have caught before. My bad.
Okay. Yes, when we were talking about, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
When we were talking about interviews before, here's where I brought my experience from when I was working for Wikimedia Argentina, because I went to college for journalism, so this comes very natural to me, and I usually find after editathons or hackathons, I would identify people who I would like to talk to and understand why they were there and what brought them there. And so with interviews, what you can do is sit down with somebody and ask them exactly like, why did you come? Why do you think this is important? What does this mean to you? Because to us it's very clear we are all working for the same, but many people who approach editathons have never heard that Wikipedia could be edited before, or they are from a generation where Wikipedia didn't exist, like this woman. So when you interview and somebody gives you their testimony, you can then bring out quotes that really liven up a report and give a different meaning and depth to the report. So the quotes could actually be included in the report, but then you can also link for further reading, and you can understand or you can give others also the chance to understand what we're doing as a movement. For instance, in archive presentation, this is the case study. What we're doing as a movement, what does it mean for a local community like Argentina? This woman uploaded some of her photos from a time. She's a photographer that specializes in human rights, and she actually was very active at the end of the last military dictatorship in our country. So this is very relevant. Why is it important to preserve these photos, and what she managed to do with them, and how she was able to put forward freedom of expression above all. And this relates to our movement in a very meaningful way, I think. So interviews, this is a very specific case, but I believe if you have the time to sit down with somebody after an editathon or a workshop, you can find out new stories that give depth to what we do every day. So
and that's a really powerful example of something that can be captured through an interview format and not necessarily through a report. It's through reading the story of this interview that you really get an appreciation for the importance of the editathon and the work that Wikimedia Argentina was doing, as opposed to just a more traditional report format where you could highlight the fact that this work took place. But for me, this is really the heart of why we do what we do.
Yes, and going back to the question that Liang Chi had, he posted a new comment on that follow-up. He says, Karel mentioned, so maybe this is a question for Karel. You mentioned the foundation helps you a lot in categorization of documents, and he wanted to know a little bit more about this.
What I meant was that the foundation has given us a privilege that we can present the documents in our own language. So this is basically what I said. But also it is also possible, if you have any question, at least in BEG program, I think it's the same in our programs, if you have any question to ask about reporting or any expenditure document or whatever question, there are people who will answer you rather quickly. So this is also another part. but what I told during the presentation was the fact that we could present all the documentation in Estonian, all the expenditure documents, and which this is really helpful, that we don't have to put time into translating them, but our responsibility is to categorize them in a manner that makes it easy to read easy to not read, but to go through for people who are not fluent, for example, in Estonian.
Thanks. So to wrap up, we would love to hear your comments and questions. If you have more questions as well, just share with us what you think about the presentation. The presentation actually ends with more resources that you can consult. So let me show you the last bit. This will be available online. So we have program resources on the evaluation portal that has tools for the most common Wikimedia programs, the learning pattern page, and the reporting and storytelling page on Meta. This is a new page where we are, so far it has the information on the series and what are the upcoming virtual events, but we are going to post here written resources when the series ends in December. So anybody who wants to can go back and consult and use the toolkits that we hope to develop with what comes out from these presentations. And Wikimedia Mexico also shared their guide to writing a report. They have some key questions that are very important to answer and advice on taking pictures as well, some of the things that we have gone through during this presentation. And we also made available here Wikimedia Estonia's guide to writing reports and proposals, which Karel was referring to before. And finally, the last link is this is an example that I really like. It's Wikimedia Deutschland Chapters Dialogue project. It is very lively and it is presented with very clear sections. And of course, it has pictures and everything, but I thought the way they introduced each section was very clear, and it could be a good example to further work on how to include storytelling and develop a narrative strategy in reporting. So reach out to us, ask questions, make comments. If you don't agree with something, what is it? What do you think can be better addressed? And what resources do you need? How can the foundation help you bring out the stories better? You can use the discussion page on the evaluation portal. Let me find that very quickly. So I'm posting this on the chat box and also on the event page. So reach out to us. Do you have any questions now that you would like to ask?
Or comments also about how we specifically at WMF can help you in writing your stories or in sharing your stories.
Okay, we can give it a few more minutes. I think we have until like 4 minutes more. But just feel free to reach out and say what did you think was good and what is useful and what could be developed more. And if you have been watching, please comment on the event page so we can keep a track of how we do on our virtual events.
So we have a question from Pierre. or a comment rather, saying, guess one of the common problems is when you have only a few resources to choose from, which story should be told?
What do you mean by a few resources?
Feel free to unmute yourself, Pierre.
Ah, yes. Limited volunteer and staff time. Yes, that is a very real challenge. I think that that's something that I was mentioning earlier. We are not taking for granted. We know that telling stories is more difficult than just writing up a list of activities that took place. You really have to know your audience, as Karel has so helpfully laid out. There are so many things that you need to have in place in order to be effectively able to tell a story. So I would just plus one what you said, that it is a very common problem, and emphasize some of the points that Karel made, that I think that if you can design your program as you go with these sort of built-in mechanisms to capture stories and data in a systematic way, that can certainly help. But it absolutely is the case that this does take time and effort. And it is something that we see many of us struggling with. Like, I think about some of the stories that have moved me the most, and they're difficult to capture. For instance, think about the video that most of us have probably seen that Victor created about the school children in South Africa. That is such a powerful story, yet that costs a tremendous amount of time and staff resources and resources to create. So it's a very real challenge. I don't know, Karel, did you want to speak to that a little bit more about how with limited time and resources you've been able to do this storytelling work and the reporting work that you've done?
I actually have a comment to throw in there. I think that the part of the story that matters the most to me when I'm reviewing this is context around your numbers. So if you can't give me the buildup of an event and a climax and what you've learned from it, tell me what matters in your report. So if 120 people came, tell me why that's important in a sentence or two, and give me context and give other readers context to understand why your event was important. And even if you don't have a lot of staff time, I just think everything you write in a report, you should ask yourself, why do they need to know this, or what will this make clear for other people? So that context in and of itself is an important part of the story, even if you can't illuminate a particular experience that someone has had.
I have a comment from Catherine Babash. She says that for the Wikimedia UK, the Wikimedia Foundation blog is essential for sharing movement news with donors. So that's +1 for blog posting. And
could I also just say one thing too, Pierre, that I was thinking about as other people were chatting is, let's test out things. Let's try different things together. We can pilot different reporting formats and structures in our program and see what works and what doesn't work, and we can have a conversation to see what's working and what's really capturing your attention and the attention of everyone in the movement. So I want to be creative about it.
I'll say one last thing about how to tell stories with limited resources. Beyond just giving context about why something is important, what really, really stood out to me from Karel's report was, or from Estonia's report, was every section went through telling you about a program, but it also said how their experience shaped their strategy for the next year or for the next round of something. And that's another way to think of storytelling, is how did what happened to us this time change the way we're going to work next time? That level of analysis I found was really powerful in enhancing my understanding of their work, where they're going, and why what happened right now matters. So again, if you can't highlight a lot of different experiences or or personal experiences, that's another way to really bring things off the page for us.
I have a follow-up question from Liang Tui about video examples. So any examples that you think is great as a report? And I was remembering Wikimedia Sweden's video on why to work with Wikipedia on education.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm posting that on the event page now.
That's an example of a video that perhaps didn't require as many resources as Victor's did that he created, but it is a high time and expertise input needed there. And I'd recommend, now that so many people have handheld cameras that can shoot videos, I'd highly recommend just playing around with that. See if you can do a quick 60-second interview in an event, or a quick video of something as it's taking place, just to capture it. Don't worry about creating a super beautiful, powerful, a storyboard that ends up with a beautiful video that we're all talking about on the next Hangout. Just try a few things. See if you can play around and create something that wouldn't come out through the pages of a report otherwise.
Another example of good video work is Armenia. They have some videos about their education program that have, a high production value and obviously took time to create, but they have others that are quick interviews with students or videos about Wiki Loves Monuments that they've created. And what I see there in their Wiki Loves Monuments video from 2013 was that there were, 20 plus young people who were, 15 to 20 years old. This is my guess, I don't know that, who are excited about Wiki Loves Monuments and volunteering, and that helps me see who their community is, and it helps me understand, why they're excited about this program. So being able to see someone who's participated in an event or someone who's excited about volunteering, that I think that's really powerful, and that's something that I usually want to share with other people. And I think it's something a lot of you can do, if you have a little bit of time.
Oh, well, we're going to do, I think it's a good idea to include these examples in the presentation. We didn't do this before sharing the presentation, but we will, and the presentation will be available also for consultation afterwards. So we're going to put the Wikimedia Sweden video and this other one as examples.
And it would be great to have others who are listening and joining in the chat to also share some of your favorite examples. It'd be good to know what's grabbed you from some of the work that your colleagues and friends are doing in other places.
Okay, I think we can wrap up now. Are there any more questions or comments that you would like to share around stories of the movement and how to include them in reporting?
I'm excited to see what we can get. And just, again, someone mentioned this earlier, all of us are here at WMF in the grant making team to support with this process and play around and try some innovative things together. So please reach out to us. There are a few ways to do that, but you can try any of us and we'll work with you together to create something awesomer and amazinger.
Thanks, everyone.
Sorry,
Casey.
I just wanted to thank people for showing up to the Hangout today, and also for all of the hard work that you guys do on reports. As the person who reads them, all of them, I really appreciate the time and energy you put into them. It is a lot of work, and we really do appreciate it, whether you're staff or volunteers. What you've been doing so far is great, and we look forward to seeing more, but thank you for your time and attention.
+1. Big +1.
One final example on videos, which was a great hit at the last Wikimania, was Liang Chi is mentioning that Wikimedia UK video of the GlamWiki revolution. We will include that in the presentation as well.
Yeah, videos are so great because they really allow us to touch and feel the stories in a totally visceral way, in a way that we can't often get through the pages. So I think that's probably one of the reasons so many of us are drawn to videos, is that they really add a new layer to the report or to the reporting process that just can't be captured on a page.
Sorry, did I interrupt?
No, I'm fine. That's done. Go ahead.
Thanks everyone for watching, and we hope you join us next time. Next meeting is November 12th, and we will post here on the Google Plus page, and Facebook and Twitter, and do follow the reporting and storytelling page on Meta, and please follow up with comments and questions if you have, and we will be happy to help you out. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.